I'd like to call this meeting to order, again by our land acknowledgement and gather on the land of Anishinaabe, Ottawa, and Mississauga peoples. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby approves the agenda for August 12th, 2024 council meeting as presented. May I have a mover? Deputy Reeve, seconder. Councillor Wright, all in favor? Carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Seeing none. Public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to any item of business on the agenda, 2 minutes per person. Members wishing to speak will need to state their name and the item of business that they wish to speak to. Seeing none. Number 5, consent agenda, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items 5.1.1 to 5.1.2, and further, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.3 to 5.3.6 for information purposes. Before anybody pulls anything out, may I have a mover? Councillor Van Hitterson, Councillor Palmer, would anybody like to pull anything out? Seeing none. At this time, all in favor? Carried. 6, public meetings, hearing, and delegations. Tonight we have Chris Vanderheiden of PSD Citywide Incorporated, presentation of updated North Huron Asset Management Plan. I'd like to welcome Chris at this time.
Thank you. Just to confirm, you can hear me at your end?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. And you can see my video, and I'll share my screen here shortly. Okay. So to confirm, you can see my presentation, North Huron Township AMP State of the Infrastructure Update.
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me this evening. My name is Chris Vanderheiden. I'm the Director of Asset Management Advisory Services at PSD Citywide. I come from a municipal government background, working for Oxford County for a number of years prior to going back to the private sector and working for PSD now for the last 8 years. Tonight's presentation, we're going to focus on North Huron Township's Asset Management Plan State of the Infrastructure Update. What does that mean? While there was a 2024 plan that was developed back in 2022, which met the requirements for OREG 588-17 for 2024 for all asset categories. So myself, Francine, Chris Towns have been working on updating the inventory in preparation for the 2025 asset management plan under the OREG 588-17 asset management plans with proposed levels of service and the 10-year financial plan to support those proposed levels of service. So a significant amount of work has gone into the inventory updates, and we've got some really good information to share with you today. If we look at OREG 588, you can see that the township has met all these milestones throughout the OREG regulations, being the Strategic Asset Management Policy, and by July 1st, 2019, and then by July 1st, 2022, the municipality actually met both the 2022 and 2024 requirements. For asset management plans, the inventory data must be within 2 years of current, and that's why we've had to go through the exercise of updating the inventory, replacement cost, condition, and so on in preparation for 2025. So as you can see on the chart here, that North Huron Township is in good position to meet the 2025 requirements with the inventory and data that we'll be sharing today. Beyond July 1st, 2025, there's still obligations for the township. So annually, council must review the asset management plan as presented on July 1st, 2025. So it's not an update, it's not redeveloping the asset management plan, but you must circle back and actually review that plan, look at your target levels of service and whether you're starting to meet those goals that you've set out, or maybe there's some adjustments that need to be made. So every year thereafter, and the next asset management plan that will be delivered by every municipality in Ontario will be in July 1st of 2030. So every 5 years thereafter, 2025, the municipality must have an updated asset management plan with revised target levels of service and financial plan. So in this asset management plan update, what is the current state of the municipal infrastructure? So we take a look at the condition, the replacement costs, and so on. We look at also some improvements that can still be made to increase the confidence and analysis of decision making, and also what is the municipality's financial capacity to meet long-term capital requirements. And as you can see, this inventory is based on 2023 year end, which will meet the requirements for the 2025 asset management plan. So just some highlights in the asset management plan. If we look at the annual capital requirement and infrastructure deficit for the township, currently, as of year-end 2022, 2023, there were 6.9 million in total tax levy, 1.5 million in total water rates, and 1.5 million in total wastewater rates. There is an annual capital requirement, available capital investment for the total annual capital requirement is $5.9 million, but the annual capital requirement is $7.2 million annually based on these numbers and figures. That leaves the municipality with a 1.3 million annual capital infrastructure deficit. Now, this may seem large, and I have to remind every municipality when I do these presentations, asset management plans in Ontario can only consider sustainable funding sources. So we can't look at senior government grants or any other source of revenue that is not considered sustainable. So very consistent. So what we see every year. So again, we have to take these numbers and look at some of the infrastructure funding that we get from time over time that we can apply to our capital investment. The actual reinvestment rate currently today sits at 1.2% for the township. And based on the annual average capital requirement, we are looking at 2.3% as a target reinvestment rate. But that, again, that's to meet full sustainability. That is replacing assets when they become due. And it's not really looking at, different things that play a factor in making these decisions. But overall, the capital reinvestment in comparison to 2022 is up 172%. So your capital reinvestment is much better than it was in 2022 based on the numbers that we've had to make these calculations on. Just get there we go. So if we look at the total replacement cost of the asset portfolio, so back in 2022, it was valued at $285.8 million in total. And today's current value, you're sitting at $318.5 million. It's roughly about an 11% increase in total replacement cost in comparison to 2022. Municipalities throughout Canada are experiencing the same story. What that really equates to is the replacement cost of infrastructure per household, and that's based on usual occupied residents, so people that live permanently within the township, is about $140,000 per household. And the reason I bring that number up, because it gives context to the residents of your municipality where their taxes and rates are going. And it's $140,000 of infrastructure stock per household. So that's a significant number. If we look at the state of the infrastructure in the condition, currently, same as 2022, 65% of all assets are in fair or better condition. So usually what we see is condition will drop over time. But there's been a lot of good assessments done and good assessment data has come into play. So you're actually 65% of all your assets are in fair or better condition again in 2024. And it remains consistent. Where we see the opportunity to have assessed condition incorporated into this plan, and Road Network has 90% of its assets with assessed condition. It's either come from the 2021 Street Scan Canada data, the 2016 Road Needs Study, and staff assessment. So that's a significant increase from the last asset management plan. Bridges and culverts, obviously 100% because they have to be inspected under OSIM regulations every 2 years. The storm network now has 78% assessed condition, but that's based on staff assessments. It's not through CCTV inspections or third-party engineering firms. It's basically subjective from your staff opinion. Buildings and facilities, 78% with assessed condition based on staff assessments, and also a combination of the 2023 BM Ross and 2020 capital management engineering assessment. So it's a combination of many things over time. The water network, 80% assessed condition, and that was from the 2013 Don Nicholson study. Now, again, we're going back, that's 11 years ago, so there's probably a need to do some more assessments, and some investment in assessments is probably a good investment going forward in the future. And your sanitary network, again, at 84% assessed condition, 2013 study through Don Nicholson, and again, 2020 capital management engineering assessments as well. That's a 50% increase in the number of assets with assessed conditions since 2022. So that's a huge improvement since 2022. The remainder of assets are age-based condition for vehicles, furniture, and equipment, and land improvements. Only 54% of assets had assessed condition in the 2022 AMP. So we're seeing a significant increase from the last asset management plan. So now we'll talk about the asset financial requirements, and everybody has probably heard life cycle management, or the total life cycle management of assets from acquisition to disposal. And really what that means is, what are we doing to our assets throughout its life to maintain it as long as we can before we have to do a capital reinvestment and within rehabilitations or replacements, and keeping your assets at an acceptable level. And this is going to tie into the 2025 proposed levels of service, because we'll be working with your staff and getting an idea from residents, possibly, what is an acceptable level. Well, everybody would like to see 100% of their assets in perfect condition all the time, but that's not reality. To be realistic, it's what I call, there's a threshold, and we want to find that threshold in every asset category to say, what is that acceptable level of condition, and what is that target that we have to meet it? So we're not looking at total sustainability at this point. Now we're looking at, okay, what's our levels that we're going to meet? So I wanted to bring this up because there's going to be a lot of conversation, a lot of workshops, and a lot of interviews with staff over the next 6 to 8 months while we build that proposed level of service in the financial plan to go into your 2025 asset management plan. If we look at the forecasted annual capital requirements today, we're looking at 7.2 million annual capital requirements based on the information and data. And again, very similar to the replacement cost, it's an 11% increase. We usually see that being quite close to being in line with each other. When we see an increase in replacement cost, the percentage usually matches that increase as well. So an 11% increase from your 2022 asset management plan. So when we look at levels of service, you've probably heard this many times over, but really what levels of service are is a balance of cost, performance, and risk. And if we put that into the municipal perspective, well, what is that balance? And that's what we will be trying to develop and achieve over the next 8 months with a proposed level of service. Where is that balance? How much risk appetite does your municipality have? What is that performance threshold you want to meet going forward into the future, but also managing the costs that go with it? So it's it's like pulling and pushing the right lever to get the right combination. So if you look at measuring levels of service, and I'm using the buildings and facilities as an example, we have key performance indicators that we've developed with the municipality. Now, the core infrastructure, there are key performance indicators that the municipality must track based on OREG, and it's only for the core infrastructure. For non-core, it's completely up to the township to define what they're tracking for each asset category. So on buildings, in this case, just an example of how we track levels of service, and this is the way we'll be tracking it over the next 5 years as you go into your next 2030 asset management plan. Buildings has the number of buildings that are energy efficient, and their count rate now is at 1. This is not something that I developed, and it's not something that I've generated these KPIs. It was through staff interviews. We also look at the percent of buildings in good or very good condition, percentage of buildings that are in poor or very poor condition. So we may set thresholds on that. Where do we want to sit as far as a level of service goes? Average risk rating associated with buildings right now, it's currently relatively low at 7.82 out of a possible 25. And then the capital reinvestment rate is at 0%. Not saying that you don't invest in your facilities, but consistently. So what we look at is sustainable revenue sources going into the building's capital reinvestment. And currently, it's not defined as a specific dollar amount every single year that goes into buildings as an individual category. So key takeaways from this asset management plan or the state of the infrastructure update. It is a snapshot in time. It's based on the current data available. So anything that has come forward in 2024 as far as assessments or funding, we can't incorporate because we're basing it on 2023 year end. The AMP should not collect dust. Under the OREGs, this is a living, breathing document that's tied to your asset management software and registry, and it needs to be updated regularly. It's part of the OREG requirements. Ensure other systems with the asset information sync with Citywide, so there is a single source of the truth. So making sure that your GIS data is the same as the inventory data, the same as the finance data. So everybody's talking about the same assets in the same language and the same quantities and cost. Form the basis of annual budgeting process. So that's a very important piece of the asset management plan. And also communication tool for staff, council, and the public. It's always interesting to see how many of your residents actually read the asset management plan that's posted on the website, and it's relatively low. So hopefully we'll see those numbers increase. Key AM program recommendations, continue to review and refine the inventory data. So we've done, Francine and Chris and other staff members have done a significant amount of work updating the inventory and replacement costs for your 2025 plan. Develop a condition assessment program, a system-wide condition assessment program. Currently, we're relying on age-based condition on a lot of the non-core assets, which doesn't really give you an idea of how they're performing. Evaluate and update lifecycle strategies and replacement costs. So as new technology and new evolutions in managing assets come forward, make sure that you're reviewing those lifecycle strategies to make sure that you're doing what you can doing at an optimal level to manage your assets. Review and continuously update replacement costs. As we've noticed over the last 3, 4, 5 years, replacement costs, inflation has significantly increased across the board. So that makes updating your replacement costs on a regular basis that much more important. So you're actually getting the right information every year when you're reviewing this asset management plan. Evaluation of levels of service. Continue to collect current levels of service data across all asset categories. So every year you should have a process in place to assess the KPIs and update those levels of service in relation to your target levels of service. The next step here is determining proposed levels of service for each asset category for the 2025 asset management plan, and try to use risk-based decision-making to prioritize your critical assets using that risk analysis to do so. So your next steps for North Huron Township, we'll be engaging staff and the public to determine levels of service targets, develop a 10-year life cycle and financial plan to meet proposed target levels of service, as outlined in OREG 588-17, and also that annual review that I talked about earlier of the AMP with council and progress achieved to propose proposed target levels of service that you've defined in your asset management plan and strategy. With that, I will open up the floor to questions, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chris. A lot of information there, and just appreciate your presentation there. Okay, at this time, I'll open up to council members. Any questions for Chris? Go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, thanks. Through you, hi, Chris. One thing that jumped out at me was page 6, where the classification of asset being land improvement had such a high proportion of poor. Do we know what's driving that, or is that too detailed of a question to answer off the top of your head?
No, and that is a very good question. We get this question all the time. Land improvement seems to be one of the asset categories where there's limited amount of data and assessed condition to those assets. So we're really simply relying on age-based assessments. And really what that is is taking a financial estimated useful life, which you use for amortizing assets, and we're then looking at how many years in service, which then translates into a condition rating based on service life remaining. And in many cases, land improvement assets have many years of life left in the assets, but we're calculating it based on the age-based analysis, which isn't giving you the best indication. And that's why I also made the recommendation to implement more of a formal condition assessment program for all assets, so you get a better idea. I hope that was answers your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Any other questions from any council members? I know whenever I went into the office there, I'd always see Francine back there. She's always punching in things and going through documents, and I can see what she's working on, and that comes up with these numbers. And just thank you for the due diligence and work in that. So, go ahead, Councillor Palmer, please.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve, and to Chris. Yeah, then leads to information technologies. We have we're on a new program now, we understand. So I'm just wondering why it's so poor. And having those two so poor really draws down the percentage, like we're 65% of all assets. It should be higher. It would be higher if we truly looked at the picture. Would it not?
Yes, and another good comment. Unfortunately, I can't comment to the new program that you have in place. I'd have to defer that to Francine or somebody from staff member from that department to speak on the program. But if the new program wasn't in place at 2023 year end, it wouldn't be reflective in this plan because the information would be after we actually use to the 2023 year end. And again, I can't speak to that because I don't work for the township myself, but it's just based on the information that we have. So I'd have to defer that question to someone that knows a little bit more about that.
Brief follow up. Yes, that is now, it's current, as we've made some changes. So I wasn't thinking about the 22 time period.
Any other questions for Chris at this time? Well, I appreciate the document you gave us. It's something to carry around our briefcase, and always have something to look at, because I know when it comes that time of year when we got to look at things, it's nice having this. And I think we really need that, people knowing what our assets are and what it is a big part of the township, and just appreciate that. So if there's no other questions from anybody. Okay, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report prepared by PSD Citywide Incorporated dated August 12th, 2024, titled 2024 Asset Management Plan for Information. And further, that council directs the Director of Legislative Services / clerk to prepare a bylaw adopting the updated asset management plan for September 3rd, 2024 regular meeting. May I have a mover? Councillor Whitfield, Councillor McBurney, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much for your time, Chris. Appreciate that.
Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Okay, now we'll move on to the Clerk's Department 7.1.1. DR 2024-02 appointment of engineer Snell Municipal Drain Improvement. The Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report, Director of Legislative / Services Clerk, dated August 12th, 2024, regarding the appointment of the engineer of Snell Municipal Drain Improvement for information purposes. And further, that the council hereby appoints Headway Engineering to prepare a preliminary report for works on the Snell Municipal Drain under Section 78 of the Drainage Act, and as requested by Christopher Cowan in the notice of the request for the drain improvement. May I have a mover and a seconder before we go to opening? Councillor Van Hitterson, Councillor Palmer. Okay, at this time, are there any questions for Clerk Lamb? Seeing none, very straightforward. 7.2.1. All in favor? Carried. 7.2.1 Finance 2024-20 Strategic Asset Management Policy Update. With that, are there any questions for Francine that come to your mind at this time? Councillor Palmer, go ahead.
Thank you, Reeve. It's not so much to you, Francine. It's just a general comment. And I've said it before. It's a big thing to tackle, this new policy. And I'm just so concerned that it's all going to lay on the shoulders of the taxpayer. And I just wanted to, there's other ways of saving money, and I'm hoping that that the directors can, they need to save money within their departments. That's what I'm trying to say, and I'm just sort of plugging that right now. And if it needs to go further, we will, or I will. Anyways, just the taxpayer cannot pay for all of this. This is scary. From our guest, it was brought up that it has to be a continual money flow. Well, there it is, the tax base. And that one is a huge concern, and it should be of all of ours. We did a good job for this last, this budget, I thought, and we need to compromise. Thank you.
Okay, no other comments from any councillors? Okay, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report of this Asset Management Plan Coordinator dated August 12th, 2024 regarding the 5-year update to the Township Strategic Asset Management Policy. And further, that the council directs the Director of Legislative Services / clerk to prepare a bylaw for September 3rd, 2024 regular meeting to adopt the updated strategic asset management policy. May I have a mover? Councillor McBurney, seconder. Councillor Whitfield, all in favor? Carried. Recreation and Children's Services Department, RC 2024-07, increased utilization of the squash courts. I'm just going to read this over first, and then I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, and then we'll ask Director Stice to maybe fill us in on a little bit. I know that she had a real good report there for us, and that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report prepared by Director of Recreation and Child Services dated August 12th, 2024 regarding the increased utilization of the squash court space for information purposes. And further, that council directs the Director of Recreation and Children's Services to apply for grant funding for revitalization of the squash court space. And further, that the council directs the Director of Recreation and Child Services and Director of Finance / Treasurer to incorporate the necessary funds for the completion of design work to revitalize the squash court space into the draft 2025 budget. May I have a mover? Councillor Whitfield? Councillor Wright? Okay, at this time, are there any questions for Director Stice that comes out of the report that she gave us? Go ahead, Councillor Van Hitterson, please.
Thank you very much. My question is, if we renovate this squash court, will it still be available for squash or not at all? Because there's apparently a big uptake from tennis and pickleball people, and they might want to keep up their techniques during winter time when the pickle and tennis ball courts aren't open.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Van Hitterson. Great question, and certainly something we could consider as we're moving through that design work phase. I don't know all of the dimensions that are required for a pickleball court, but we certainly are hoping that this space is much better utilized and has more multi-uses. We are looking forward to day camps getting in there in the summertime and being able to use a larger space to play indoors, perhaps when the weather's not cooperating, but also a space for fitness classes. And then as you may suggest, perhaps some pickleball technique classes as well.
Go ahead, Deputy Reeve, please.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve. Is there any hard data saying that any renovations to the space is warranted as to required usage? I noticed we're talking about maybe they'll use it on rainy days or so. Is there not any hard data to what should be in there rather than just making it almost good for everything but not quite right for one thing? And obviously the pickleball, or not pickleball, the squash courts fell out of favor. I'm assuming that they're not being used, and we do have money going into squash courts or pickleball courts in the township. I just worry about putting money back into something that there's no data to say this is what is used. Now you're saying the some fitness rooms for doing fitness. Well, we had fitness that wasn't being fully utilized, so making a bigger space to me just doesn't sound like it's the right fit when we've already tried that. And just we have assets now that we don't maintain because they're just not being used anymore. I was just curious as to, like I say, if there's any data saying that yes, if we do this, this is going to bring them in. I know that's not a hard question to answer, but when you're asked to redo a space that's not being used now to make it into another space that's not going to be used, is it a good choice of tax dollars?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Deputy Reeve Faulkner. It is difficult, as you say, to pinpoint exactly where where this space needs to land. What we're seeing is right now, anecdotally, we see lots of people coming with basketballs and wanting to play basketball in that space. And so there were 2 years, the second basketball net was installed in 2022. And so we were seeing some increased usage with respect to basketball. The space needs some renovation. The floor is starting to come up and needs to be attended to. And we are hoping that by getting some design work done, that we will be able to then apply for some grants to help us to pay for the renovation of this space. That to comments earlier, that it's not coming off the backs of the taxpayer, but that we are mobilized and in a position to apply for some grant funding. But we aren't able to do that until we know what the scope of the cost is. And to Councillor Van Hittersum's point earlier, we really want to try and make this multi-purpose so that we aren't pigeonholed into a specific sport that has a life cycle. As we see with all kinds of sports, they have life cycles. So to your point, we will be looking at that.
Okay.
Thank you, Reeve. Just through the Reeve, we've had other assets of North Huron that have been talked about in past years of things to redo as far as recreation goes. Other requests that have come through backdated to 5 or 6 years ago that we've never acted on. And we have other spaces that need that haven't been renovated to make them more useful. I'm just curious as to, does this one would this supersede all those others? We've had requests for skate parks. We've had requests. Well, the upstairs of the Blythe Arena hasn't been used and could use some kind of repurposing of something. And that's been 5 years now. Just throwing something into ahead of any of all that other stuff. I'm just curious as to whether are we going to forget all those other things and jump ahead?
Go ahead.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Deputy Reeve Faulkner. What this will allow us to do is put a list of items before you. I would also share that at the next council meeting, my intention is to bring a report that does reference the Blythe Community Hall this at the second floor and some options moving forward. I'm just in the process of finalizing that report for you. So that has not been forgotten.
Councillor Palmer had your hand up, please.
Thank you, Reeve. Kelly, have you been able to, have you found any other like neighboring complexes with a similar issue? And have you been able to garner any examples of how they made changes, if any?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer. That is a great question. I'm not aware of any neighboring community complexes that have the squash courts that are kind of sitting in the same situation we are. I want to move prudently and with council's direction, and so looking forward to placing this on our budget for your consideration as a project in 2025.
Go ahead, Councillor Wright, please.
Yeah, thanks, through you. So I'm certainly supportive of this. I've used these spaces quite a bit myself. They certainly could use some renovation. I guess just the one thing I would like staff to take into account is to look at all publicly available spaces that are available for the public to use, not just necessarily North Huron owned assets. So, you know, schools have basketball courts that are available for public use, for example, but these are the only squash courts that are available for quite some distance. So I'd hate to lose unique recreational opportunities we have within the area. So I'd just like that to be taken into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from any councillors? Seeing none, I have a mover and seconder. Okay, so have I read this? You've read. Yeah. Okay. So she's asking to go ahead so she can go on with just getting some information for us. So I'll put it to a vote at this time. All in favor? Just, sorry, hold your hands up. I carried. This time we're going to 7.4.1, Public Works 2024-27, Wingham Street resurfacing tender results. May I have a mover? And this mover, please. Councillor Wright, seconder, Councillor Whitfield. At this time, are there any questions for Director Wilson at this time? Pretty clear in there with the RFPs back, and it is very good. And did you want to say anything about this at all, Director Wilson?
Thank you, Reeve. I just wanted to say that the quotes that came back in were very good quotes, and with having 150,000 in the budget and getting it back this work done for 117, and discussing asset management, this is an excellent way to improve these assets and extend their useful life at a reasonable cost, and could be something that is looked at in future years.
Good. Thank you very much. Okay, that the Council Township North Huron hereby receives a report prepared from the interim director of Public Works and Facilities dated August 12th, 2024 regarding the tender results for the Wingham Street resurfacing project, and further that the council accepts the lowest tender price provided by Armstrong Paving Materials Group Limited in the amount of $117,017.75 plus applicable taxes. And may I, all in favor? Carried. I understand that it's could be done by the end of September, so that's going to be very much appreciated. 7.6.1 CS 2024-10 North Huron deaccessioning project report number 14, that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives a report prepared by the Community Engagement Coordinator dated August 12th, 2024 regarding the North Huron Museum deaccessioning project, report number 14 for information purposes. And further, that the council authorize staff to continue with the deaccessioning process for the list of artifacts attached to staff report CS 2024-10 following the North Huron Museum deaccessioning policy. May I have a mover? Counselor Van Henderson, seconder, Counselor McBurney. Are there any questions for CO Evans? Seeing none, very, very straightforward. All in favor? Carried. 7.6.2, commercial facade CAO 2024-19 facade improvement grant application, 194 Josephine Street, Wingham. That the council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report of the Economic Development Officer dated August 12th, 2024 regarding the commercial facade improvement grant application for 194 Josephine Street, Wingham. And further, that the council hereby approves the commercial facade improvement grant for 194 Josephine Street, Wingham in the amount of $4,296.26. And further, that the council, that the Director of Legislative Service / clerk be directed to prepare and execute an agreement between the Township of North Huron and the applicant, which outlines the terms and conditions of the grant program. May I have a mover? Counselor Palmer, seconder, Deputy Reeve. Are there any questions for Ritu? Are there any questions for Ritu? We all know where this Tyville is on the main street. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. It's nice seeing that these grants are getting used up by the downtown businesses for sure. 7.6.3 CAO 2024-20 Huron OPP Detachment Board Community Representatives. Are there any questions for CAO Evans here? Seeing none, may I have a mover? Counselor Van Henderson, Counselor McBurney. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report prepared by the CAO dated August 12th, 2024 regarding the Huron County OPP Detachment Board Community Representatives for the information purposes, and further that the council appoints the following as community representative for Huron County OPP Detachment Board until the end of the current term of council 2022-2026. Jeanette Walker, representing a resident of Blue Water, and Jasmine Clark, representing as a resident of Central Huron. Seconder, all in favor? Carried. Correspondence requiring action or direction. 8.1, Dave and Ashley Donaldson letter, concession booth operations at the North Huron West Cass Community Complex. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby supports the reopening of the concession booths at the North Huron West Cass Community Complex and the Blythe Community Center for the 2024-25 ice season during the township's established hours of operation and on a cost recovery basis. And further, that the council hereby directs the Director of Recreation and Child Services to prepare and release RFPs for the operation of the concession booth at the North Huron West Cass Community Complex for the 2024-25 ice season, and the operation of the concession booth at the Blythe Community Center for the 2024-2025 ice season. May I have a mover? Counselor Van Henderson, Counselor Whitfield. Okay, are there any questions that you got from the report that Director Stice gave us? Go ahead, Counselor Van Henderson.
Thank you, Reeve Heffer. I have a question regarding the cost of renovations because the concession booths have been empty for quite a couple of years. Who will be responsible for that? Is that the township or the possible leasers? And I also have an issue, or not an issue. I have a question about a lot of community groups like broomball and hockey are using the upstairs kitchen in Blythe for fundraising meals, and it's a major fundraiser for them, and how they will be affected if they still are allowed to prepare their meals in the upstairs or the kitchens that they currently use.
Okay, I'll ask Director Stice at this time.
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Van Henderson. We in the RFP proposal, we can identify any renovations and who is responsible for that. Mr. and Mrs. Donaldson, who sent the letter in, I did give them a tour. So they approached me and I gave them a tour of the concession booth in the Westcast Community Complex. And they didn't see a need for renovations at that time. It needs a good cleaning. And we did need to get rid of some surplus items that are no longer used, some broken tables and chairs. So that has been done and it needs a good cleaning, which would be the responsibility of the municipality. It is our space, but ongoing maintenance and cleaning, we would be able to outline within that RFP process. As for the impact to our community groups in Blythe, I think that's something that we could have conversations as we move through. If council desires us moving through this process, we can certainly have conversations to ensure that there are minimal to no impacts to our community users.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer, please.
Yeah, I was just curious, do those groups in Blythe, do they operate at the same time as their sports events? Yes. Like, would they compete, hour for hour with an opening of the
It's during the tournaments that they have
just the
fundraising.
tournaments?
Yeah, mostly.
Then if I may, Director, would the RFP be that one group, company, whatever, would need to have both operations like Blythe and Westcast, or could they select just the one and still sort of win?
Through you, Reeve Heffer, to Councillor Palmer. The intention was that they would have an opportunity to bid on each complex separately, given that they're a small business. And when Mr. and Mrs. Donaldson came through, I did let them know that if council desired movement in this direction, that it would need to go through a public RFP process. I imagine it would be a smaller business, and I'm not sure that they would have the capacity to be able to manage both sites, but it's open that somebody could apply for both, and we could build a process that it would allow for that kind of review. But we would want to make sure that someone has the capacity to be able to deliver a good product, right? We want to have a successful business in there, and we want to support people to be successful.
Councillor Ray, please.
Thanks, Reeve. I know that it's going to be welcome to have the food booth up and running again at that arena. I guess my one question is if the RFP is going to be I'm just curious how the hours of operation are going to be handled in the RFP. If it's going to be completely up to the operator to determine what hours they want to run, or if there's going to be certain expectations within the RFP about when they run, minimum number of hours. Just wondering if we're being prescriptive or if we're just going to leave that open.
Through you, Reeve Heffer. The RFP hasn't been put together at this point, so you raise a couple of good considerations. I think what we want to make sure is that the concession booth is being run during our operating hours, so we wouldn't be allowing a group to come in after we don't have staff on site so that they could cook perhaps during the evening. That's certainly not the intention. The intention is to make sure we're serving the needs of our hockey goers and skating and broomball and all of those people who like to come and frequent our facility. But I think that certainly is something that we could negotiate in that process.
Go ahead, Councillor Van Hitterson, please.
Thank you. This is actually probably a question for the clerk. Mr. and Mr. Donaldson have two food trucks. What is our policy for food trucks in the wintertime? Would they be able to put their food truck on the parking lot at the arenas and have their business over there?
Through your worship, to answer Councilor Van Hitterson's question. So you have a food trucks on municipal property bylaw, which allows for food trucks generally for special events, and licenses are for a maximum of 7 days. So generally for it would need to be tied to a special event going on that property. And, yeah, so I guess logistically, no, I don't see them being able to, include their food or leave their food truck outside the property. It would be more of they have to operate within the concession booth.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Good questions came here and appreciate that very much. At this time, we have mover and a seconder. All in favor? Carried. Number 9 reads activity report. Sort of a quiet time right now. I just want to say, got to say greetings to the Normoska Car Show as their 65th year that they are in this business, and they go around to 10 different zones each year, and or every 10 years they hit a zone, and they've been at the Blythe for 2 different campsites, and this is the 3rd time, but nothing but good reports about the campsites, how they enjoyed it and whatnot. And it was a great evening, and then they're there all week and even more than the week. So it was really good. And just thanks to the staff that kept the parks, everything nice and tidy there. Very much appreciated. And then I'd like to able to say greetings from the North Huron for the Blythe Memorial Hall, where they renamed the hall stage after Margaret Stevenson. There's a sum of money given, bequeathed to the Memorial Hall there. And again, it was a great celebration there that they had, and it was very much appreciated by all, and is a very good time. And then last but not least, I'd like to thank Hannah Hall, our HR person. She made oh, did I say Hannah Hall? I'm sorry, Hannah Carr. Appreciated the work that she did of having a staff appreciation banquet or barbecue through dinner time, and a lot of the workers were able to pop in for a few minutes and enjoy, and it was just nice seeing them and able to thank them for the work that they do from the bottom of the municipality, from Blythe all the way up through East Wallinosh right up to town here. And it is a real nice time, and just kudos out to Hannah for getting that to work for us. And at this time, are there any council or member of the board committee reports? Go ahead, Councillor Van Henderson, please.
Thank you, Reverend. On August the 8th, the Belgrave Playground Committee received a $25,000 donation from the Belgrave Kinsman. So we're very happy, very appreciate from this wonderful donation. Next week, Saturday night, no, this week, the 17th, there will be a kids movie. The playground will be specifically for children, so we wanted to do something fun for the kids and have a movie night. Cars 3 is being played. There will be hot dogs and games beforehand, and the movie starts at 6:30. Parents are welcome to come. The bar will be open, and it will be a fun night for everybody. So
Great, thanks. Anybody else? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer, please.
Yeah, just to add to Anita's report there, I think the Belgrave committee was part of that donation as well, I thought. Anyways, it would include like the Wingham Homecoming, like because I think the Kinsmen were up here one of the events, and of course the monies that they got from the people that partied on, that would be part of the donation that went to the playground. So there was a lot of people involved in that actually.
Very good. No other comments? Okay, now comments by members. Okay, notice of motion. Are there any notice of motions this evening? Seeing none. Bylaw number 60-2024 procedural bylaw amendment. Update to section 15.1A and 17.3. May I have a mover? Councillor McBurney, seconder. Councillor Whitfield, all in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 61-2024, appointment of lottery licensing officers. May I have a mover? Counselor Van Hitterson, Deputy Reeve. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 62-2024, appointment of Director of Fire and Emergency Management, Fire Chief. May I have a mover? Seconder, Counselor, that was Counselor Palmer and Counselor Wright. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 63-2024, appointment of Deputy Fire Chief. May I have a mover? Counselor Deputy Reeve. Seconder, Counselor Van Hitterson. All in favor? Carried. We have these two gentlemen here this evening and just welcome you and thank you for the work that you put in to ours through the time period. And again, thank you very much. Number 11, next meeting, special council meeting will be held on Friday, August 16th, 2024 at 9 a.m. in the North Huron Council Chambers, 271 Francis Street. The next regular council meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the North Huron Council Chambers, 271 Francis Street. The next Wingham BIA board meeting will be held on Thursday, August 15th at 6:30, Hot Stove Lounge at North Huron West Cass Community Complex. And the next Blythe BIA board meeting will be held on Thursday, August 29th, 2024 at 8 a.m. in the Blythe and District Community Center. I just want to make a note is just given to me. The Advance Fund will be open for people wanting to put in for grants there in August the 18th too as well. So we can keep that in mind too. And at this time, are there any other announcements? Go ahead, Deputy Reed, please. Hey. Hey, other business? Go ahead.
Thank you, Reeve. I'm just curious of whether staff could give an update on the moving of the Blythe, welcome to Blythe sign. That's coming due that this winter time that we won't be able to have that property anymore. I just wonder if there's been any movement on the movement of the replacing the sign across the street.
You can update if you want.
Through you, Reeve Heffer. Yes, we have had a couple of meetings regarding the movement of the sign, and we're going to be having an open house with some of the citizens that have been working and looking after the flowers and that at the sign. And then we're going to give a quote to have it removed out of there, and then probably an RFP out to have it reinstated across the road. And we've also been in contact with the county for across the road. So things are in movement for it. You're welcome.
Fine with that. Good. No closed session. Sorry.
Thank you. The email that we received about the Blythe dumping station, that was a good move, closing that for this, for the event that was happening down country. But then there was a sentence, staff will be seeking funds to complete. And that one I didn't understand because we already dealt with that with our budget this year.
Go ahead, CL.
Through you, Reeve. So council gave direction in terms of relocating the Blythe dumping station from its current location over to the community center property. But there were not funds included in the 2020. I'll confirm with Director Towns when he returns, but my understanding when we followed up was there were no funds in there. But I'll confirm.
Okay, that's fine. Yep. Go ahead, Deputy Reed, please.
Thank you. Just on a follow-up there with the closure of the dumping station, I've been sent photographic evidence and been told many times by personal emails there that the extent that some of the users of the station will go to, regardless of it being closed, I've received photographs of people climbing over the fenced area to dump. I've received photographs where they've actually moved the fencing closer, pushing it physically, moving the fencing just so they could dump their, even though it said that it was closed. So I think any further closure, if we're ever inclined to do that, may have to have more sustainable provisions to be done, because they were using the facilities anyway.
I think we still have to give kudos out to Dax and the crew there, because they didn't have much time to do that, and just appreciate them getting that done. Okay, so I'll move on to 14.1. Bylaw number 64-2024, conformatory bylaw. May I have a mover? Councillor Van Hitterson, Councillor Deputy Reeve, all in favor? Carried. Adjournment, that the Council of Township of North Huron agree that there being no further business before council, the August 12th, 2024 regular council meeting will be hereby adjourned at 7 o'clock. May I have a mover? Councillor Wright, Councillor Whitfield, all in favor? Carried.